It's me. Now, tonight's movie is a classic. It is The Blob. And I don't mean the remake, I mean the original 50s drive-in movie, The Blob. Right off the bat, it immediately gives you that classic drive-in monster movie vibe because it starts off with a custom theme song for the movie. And I love it. Like, right off the bat, it sets the mood and it's just fun. Now, obviously, this is a movie from the 50s, so it's dated. Like, the effects, honestly, the effects aren't as bad, considering they're 70 years old. Like, they definitely could look worse. You know, some of the times when the blob moves, it doesn't look terrible. Like, it doesn't look realistic, but it doesn't look terrible either. And, you know, there's a lot of spots where there's clearly a matte painting in the background, but there's other times where, you know, they make things look pretty decent. Like, I'm going to give it some grace, because, you know, there's a huge, like, time span between when this movie was made and where we are now, and the technological growth in there is just insane. So, like, they could only do so much. This was well before they had computers to do any kind of CG or post effects. Like, if you wanted to have, you know, weird stuff happen in camera, you literally had to, like, develop half of the film and then develop the other half of that film on a second shot. Like, you had to do crazy stuff to make any visual trickery happen. So, anything they managed to pull off here is impressive. Like, this is pre-green screen, so, you know, any effects they had at all are incredible. One thing I will say, that one detractor, the acting. Oh man, ever since the movie came out, Willowvale Harbor was the first feature film that I was in. I have been kind of embarrassed in my acting in that movie because, you know, at the time I wasn't taking it seriously. It was just a chance to hang out with my friends and just have a good time and make a movie. You know, I didn't really think like, oh, hey, we're actually making a film. I should try harder. And so now when I watch the film, I'm like, wow, I really kind of sucked. I could have done a much better job. But now, going back and watching The Blob, I'm like, you know what? I was fine. I did totally okay. Because Steve McQueen, man, was he rough in this. I know he went on to be a very prolific actor, and, you know, a lot of people like him and stuff, but oof, it was rough. A lot of his delivery seems like this was his first day being a human, and he didn't know how emotions or talking worked yet, and so all of his lines were just delivered in the weirdest way. Also, too, I should point out, you know that trope that you see in movies, the, hey there, fellow kids? The way I said hey there just gave me a flashback to a short film I was in. It was weird. But, you know, the joke where you have a clearly too old actor playing a younger role, yeah, that comes from this movie. Steve McQueen, meant to be a high schooler in this film, was 28 years old. And his girlfriend, Annette, oh god, I forget her last name. I think it starts with a C. It's like Corvette or something. I don't know. But she was 24. So neither of them looked like high schoolers. Steve McQueen looked like he had gray hairs. But yeah, it's really funny watching these people in their mid to late 20s play high schoolers, because they're clearly not. But yeah, the acting in this film was rough. Like, it's passable. It gets the job done. You understand what's happening, but could have been better. This is a film, honestly, and I know it was remade. I know there's the color remake that came out in the late 80s, 88, I want to say. So, like, I know it's been done, but since Hollywood is obsessed with giving us remakes and, you know, like, just revamping old franchises and stuff, I want this movie to get a remake, because I think of The Blob in, like, this era with the CG and the, you know, the techniques and the effects and the camera tricks and all the tech we have now. I think this could be really cool. Because really, the premise is fun. You know, a meteorite with an alien thing in it crashes on Earth, and some dude gets curious and pokes it with a stick, which, classic dude. And the meteorite breaks open, the alien comes out, and it starts just consuming everything. And as it eats more stuff, it grows. Um, Basically, it's Katamari Damacy, the monster movie. And so I want that to be a thing. Like, I just think it's fun. It's a cool premise. And that's what happens in this movie. It lands, and some old random farmer guy out in the middle of nowhere pokes it with a stick, and then it creeps up the stick onto his arm, and it starts engulfing. Pretty soon it ate him. And then it eats the doctor and his nurse, and then it eats a store full of people and a mechanic and all sorts of other stuff, and pretty soon it's trying to consume an entire diner. And then they realize, hey, if we shoot it with fire extinguishers, we can freeze it, and that'll, shrink it back down and get it under control. And it's just fun. It's simple, it's straightforward, but it's a fun premise, and I feel like nowadays you could do some fun things with it. Because just like in this movie, I don't think people would immediately think, hey, let's freeze it. And it's not like there's an abundance of frozen or freezing things out and about that it would encounter that you would naturally, think or notice that, hey, it's not going near the cold stuff. Like, this could land, if you were making this today, you have the Blob lands in California, near the beach, somewhere that's just always sunny, it's always warm, people are just swimsuit, era, that kind of thing, where there's not cold around. And then the movie becomes a real challenge of A, they have to figure out that cold is what stops it, and then B, they have to find cold things to stop it with. That could be a fun movie. I think they could do a lot with that nowadays. So, yeah, Hollywood, if you're going to keep remaking old movies, remake this one. It deserves it. But back to the one I just watched, this movie. Like I said, it is a fun premise. It's straightforward, and once the movie gets going, it feels like it escalates and then resolves pretty quickly. It's not like it's a super short movie or anything, but it just, it feels like it takes a second to where the Blob is here, and then things are happening, and they're going after it. But once the ball starts rolling and the Blob starts eating people, it escalates quick, and then all of a sudden it's trying to eat this diner, and it kind of resolves really quick. So I feel like the pacing is an issue, but it's both too slow and too fast, depending on which part of the movie you're watching. So, again, if you were going to remake this, I feel like get the pacing a little more under control, but also I think part of that just goes back to, like I said, the era. There was only so much they could do with the effects. There's only so much they could stretch out the actual time the monster is on screen because, they can only do so much to make it look good. So I think just doing this nowadays with the effects to where you can have the Blob on screen more, I think that fixes a lot of the problems. But yeah, overall, I don't know. This movie, this is always going to be a classic to me. When I was a little kid, I would stay up late and watch the late night movie channels on my TV in my bedroom. Because I was one of those fancy kids. I had a TV in my bedroom. I was not fancy. I was poor as hell. But I did have a TV in my bedroom. It was an old, the black and white, with the UHF and VHF dials. It was an old TV, but it worked, and I could watch stuff. And, most of the time I was just staying up late so I could quietly watch Beavis and Butthead when my mom couldn't hear. But occasionally I would go to the late night movie channels, and there would be Alfred Hitchcock Presents, or Tales from the Crypt, or those kinds of things. And I loved watching the late night horror. And I don't remember which was the first one I saw, but the first 3 horror movies I remember seeing were The Birds, Dolls, and Beware the Blob, which is actually the sequel to this movie. And all 3 of those have stuck with me forever. I love, haunted doll movies. That's probably my favorite horror subgenre. I love classic drive-in monster movies, especially The Blob, and I'm a big fan of Hitchcock. So yeah, all 3 of those just resonate with me. And so like I said, because Beware the Blob was one of the first, if not the first, horror movies and monster movies I ever saw, I just kind of have a soft spot for the Blob. I can't rate this movie too low, even though the effects are super dated and the acting could certainly be better and the pacing needs tweaking. Like, it's still a fun movie. I'd still honestly give it like a 6, maybe even a 7. Like, I would put it above average. I genuinely enjoy watching it. It is a good time. Um, yeah, I think that's the review. Like, I basically told you the entire movie. There's not a whole lot to it. Like I said, it really is straightforward. It's just, I know, it's fun. It's classic monster formula. You have the teenagers and they're doing their normal thing, and then, oh my god, there's a monster, and a few people die, and then the teenagers figure out how to save the day, and then they do save the day, and then happily ever after. It's basically every JRPG where you have, like, the high school kids with the crazy anime hair, and there's a problem and it's threatening the whole world and the adults are useless, and so the teenagers have to go solve the problem, and then they do. Yay, world saved. Same thing for the old drive-in movies. And yeah, it's just a fun time. So like I said, 6 or 7. I think it's above average. I think it's a fun movie. I love watching it. It's one I will go back and watch this franchise every so often because it just amuses me. And I think that's all I have to say, really. Fun movie. Give it a watch if you've never seen it. You probably haven't. It's super old. Like, your grandparents watched it, maybe. But yeah, give it a watch. It's a lot of fun. And I think that's about it. So, see you tomorrow.